Last week when we left Peter, he had denied Jesus 3 times. He had failed. He had fallen. He denied Jesus 3 times. And now is the opportunity for his redemption, where Jesus comes along and forgives him and redeems him for denying him 3 times. So we will be in John chapter 21. And we're going to read a little bit, but then I'm going to stop so that we can focus on what it's saying. So let's take a look at John chapter 21, verse 1, which says, afterward. Let's stop there. After what? Well, Peter had denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus died on the cross, was buried in the tomb, and then on Sunday morning, what happened? He was raised from the dead. And Jesus appeared to Mary Magdalene outside the tomb. When Peter and John heard that the tomb was empty, they raced to the tomb, but they didn't find Jesus. They didn't find him or his body. They only found some cloth. Then Jesus appeared to 2 disciples on the road to Emmaus. And then in the evening, he appeared to 10 of the apostles. 10 because Judas had died, and 10 because Thomas was missing. He wasn't there. So Jesus made 3 resurrection appearances on the first day that he was raised from the dead. And it's interesting that Jesus made a specific visit to Thomas. Thomas said, I won't believe it until I see the nail marks in his hands and the spear mark in his side. When I see that, then I'll believe that Jesus is alive. And what did Jesus do? He came back a week later and appeared just for Thomas. He said, Thomas, stop doubting and believe. Now, could you imagine how Peter felt during that moment? I mean, Thomas doubted, and Jesus came back to take away the doubt. Peter denied Jesus 3 times. When does Peter get his chance at redemption? When does Peter get his chance at forgiveness? Well, it comes right here in John chapter 21. So that's why we had to pause with the first word, afterward. So now we're going to continue. John 21, verses 1 through 3. Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. I'm going out to fish, Simon Peter told them. And they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and got into the boat. But that night they caught... I couldn't hear you. That night they caught nothing. They caught nothing. Now if you do the math, there's 7 disciples in the boat. We have Simon Peter, of course. Thomas is mentioned second because Thomas figures, you know what, I missed Jesus once. I don't want to miss out again. So he's listed second. Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, which would be James and John the Apostle who wrote the Gospel of John. So he was there and he saw this and experienced this with his own eyes, and 2 other disciples, most likely Andrew because he was Peter's brother, and if we had to guess, the other unnamed disciple might be Philip because he was friends with Nathanael. So these 7 disciples get into the boat because Peter said, I'm going out to fish. I'm going fishing. Now, did Peter mean that I'm going out to fish because I don't know what to do next? I'm just killing time. This was my old job. Or is he saying, you know what? I'm no longer worthy to be an apostle. I'm no longer worthy to be a leader or a follower. So I'm just going to go back to my old way of life, the old way of life that I had before Jesus came around. It's hard to know, probably impossible to determine what he meant by that. But they went out fishing that night. 7 men, some of them were fishermen by profession, and all that night they caught nothing. They caught nothing. And they are on the Sea of Galilee. So this is the same lake where Jesus called Peter, Andrew, James, and John in the first place. Something's going to happen here. Something's going on. This was the same place where Jesus did a miraculous catch of fish before. So let's see what happens next. Verses 4, 5, and 6, John 21. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, friends, haven't you any fish? No, they answered. He said, throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. So all night they have fished, they have caught nothing, and there's somebody on the shore. They don't recognize Jesus yet. They don't recognize him yet. And he called out to them, got any fish? And their answer was, no. Probably not excited. They were probably tired and frustrated. They had not caught any fish all night. So Jesus gives the best fishing advice you could ever ask for. The fish are not on this side of the boat. They're on the other side of the boat. Throw your net on the right side of the boat and you will find some. And when they did, they were unable to haul it in because of the large number of fish. Same lake, Sea of Galilee. Same miracle that Jesus did before. Remember, Peter had fished all night in Luke chapter 5. Caught nothing. Jesus said, let's go out into the water, cast on the other side. Peter said, because you say so, I'll do it. And here they did it again. Same lake, same miracle. You think they're catching on to what's going on? John is. Verse 7, then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, it is the Lord, he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it, and some bread. So someone recognizes that it's Jesus. Same lake, same miracle that Jesus did before. I wonder who's on the beach. Who is it?
Jesus.
It's Jesus, and the disciple whom Jesus loved recognized him. Now the disciple whom Jesus loved, in case you don't know who we're talking about, is John, who wrote this gospel. John the apostle. That's how he refers to himself, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And you might think, man, I thought Peter and Jesus were the two BFFs. I thought they were close. I thought they were tight. And they are. But remember this, that when Jesus died on the cross, before he died, his mother stood at the cross, and one of the apostles was there, the apostle John. And he said to John, here is your mother. And he said to Mary, here is your son. When Jesus was dying, he entrusted Mary to John's care. That's why he's referred to as the disciple whom Jesus loved. So John says, it's the Lord, it's Jesus. Peter throws on his outer garment, jumps in the water, Michael Phelps style, swims to shore, and he gets there. The other guys are in the boat with the fish, for they're about 100 yards from shore. And Jesus is on the beach, and what does he have going on? He's got breakfast. He does. He's got a fire of burning coals. Now last week, I asked you to remember something for this week. Do you remember what it was? That when Peter denied Jesus 3 times, he did it around a charcoal fire. And here is Jesus on the beach. There's bread, fish, and a charcoal fire, a fire of burning coals. Look at verse 10. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153. But even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, come and have breakfast. None of the disciples dared ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. So they have a net full of fish, 153 fish, this miraculous catch, huge catch of fish, and the nets don't tear, the nets don't break. That's the way Jesus does things. 2 miracles for the price of 1. Right? Huge catch of fish, the net doesn't break. This is what God does throughout the Bible. When Moses stood at the Red Sea and when Joshua stood at the Jordan River, what happens? God parts the waters and the ground is dry. 2 miracles for 1. Now, if you can think of other instances where God does 2 miracles in 1 shot, please let me know, because I would like to figure some more of those out. But here's what God did. Here's what Jesus did. Huge catch of fish, the nets don't break. Now, someone from first service said, there was a 3rd miracle, because where did Jesus get the bread and the fish from that he had on the shore? The answer is obvious. Walmart. No. That's totally wrong. Totally incorrect. Bad theology. But that really wasn't part of the miraculous catch of fish. But you know what? I love Jesus wholeheartedly. Jesus, if we're having breakfast in heaven, could it not be fish? How many of you had fish for breakfast? No, but did you?
Oh, not this
today.
Morning.
No, today. Not forever. We're not counting our entire lives. But Jesus has fish and bread and the charcoal fire going. And then Jesus gives one of the easiest commands he's ever given in the Gospels. What is that command? Come and have breakfast. And the disciples are like, we're on board. They fished all night, hadn't caught anything, so they were tired and frustrated and probably very hungry. You know, Jesus gives hard commands sometimes. If you want to follow me, you must deny yourself and take up your cross daily and follow me. That's a hard one. Come have breakfast, that's an easy one, but they're not all that easy. And they knew it was the Lord. They knew it was the Lord. This was the third time he had appeared to them as a group. Remember, the first time he appeared to 10 of them. Thomas wasn't there. Second time there were 11 of them because Thomas was there because Jesus made a special appearance for Thomas. Now there's 7 of them. So this is the third time that Jesus has appeared to his disciples. And now Jesus is going to speak directly to Simon Peter. Verse 15. When they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Peter had denied Jesus 3 times publicly. Now Jesus is going to give Peter the opportunity to redeem himself 3 times publicly. Did you notice what Jesus called him? Simon. We've already said, as we've looked at Peter's life, whenever Jesus called him by the name of Simon, something had gone wrong. He fell asleep in the garden while Jesus was praying. He said, Simon, can't you stay awake for an hour? When Satan was going to test him, he said, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you as wheat. Now he's denied him 3 times. And what does he say? Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Do you love me more than these other guys? You know, Peter was the one who said, even if all fall away, I never will. James and John didn't fall away. Philip and Andrew and Nathaniel didn't fall away. Thomas didn't fall away. But Peter had fallen away. Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? Yes, Lord, he said. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my lambs. Verse 16. Again, Jesus said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? He answered, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Jesus said, take care of my sheep. You'll notice with all three instances, Jesus asks the question, Peter answers it, and then Jesus gives him a command, right? Do you love me? Yes, Lord, you know that I love you. And then there's a command. The first command was, feed my lambs. Now, Jesus didn't have a flock of sheep that had gone unattended. He's saying, take care of my people. Take care of my lambs. Feed my lambs. Take care of my sheep. Verse 17, feed my sheep. He's saying, Peter, you need to realize that I need you to be Peter again. I need you to be the rock. I need you to be the one who walked on water and made the good confession. That's who I need you to be. I need you to be the leader of the 12. I need you to be the man who's going to preach the gospel on the day of Pentecost. I need you to be Peter, not Simon. I need you to be strong and dependable, and I need you to lead these guys, and I need you to lead my church. Be the rock, Peter. Verse 17. The third time he said to him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him the third time, do you love me? He said, Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Now Peter says something here that we need to pay attention to. He says, Lord, you know all things. He comprehends this now, but he did not before. Because a few days earlier, Jesus said to Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows, but when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. Jesus knew all of it. He knew it was all going to happen before it happened. He is all-knowing. The word we use for that is omniscient. He knows everything. He has all knowledge. He is all-knowing. He said, Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows, but when you've turned back, strengthen your brothers. The turning back is what's going on right now. Jesus knew it was going to happen. exactly the way it happened. Now Peter realizes, Lord, you do know all things, and you know that I love you. How did Peter feel when Jesus asked the question the third time? He was hurt. He was hurt. Because he's feeling just a small sample of the sting that Jesus felt that night when Peter denied him 3 times. We have the same lake, the same miracle, the same fire, the same challenge as before. Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Jesus recreated the worst moment of Peter's life and gave him an opportunity for redemption. Jesus did this, not Peter. Jesus gave Peter the opportunity for redemption. And when Jesus said, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? All 3 times he said, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. So Jesus gave him an opportunity for redemption, and Peter accepted that opportunity. He accepted that redemption. Jesus redeemed Peter on the beach. The Rabbi redeemed the rock. And Jesus still redeems people. In fact, he redeemed you and me. Would you like to know what Peter had to say about redemption? He wrote this in 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. He says, for you know that it was not with perishable things such as silver or gold that you were redeemed from the empty way of life handed down to you from your ancestors, but with the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. You know, Peter says you can't be saved because of money. You can't be saved by silver or gold or by living a good life and piling up good deeds. It doesn't work that way. Redemption comes only one way in the eyes of God. And that way is through Jesus Christ. Through the Lamb of God, the precious blood of Christ, a lamb without blemish or defect. Jesus never failed, never sinned. And it was his perfect sacrifice on the cross that enables us to be saved. There's no other way. If one person can get to heaven without Jesus, then Jesus died for nothing. He died in vain. And I believe that Jesus did not die for nothing. He died for you and for me. He came to redeem us. You're not redeemed with silver and gold. Did you notice how Peter described life here? The empty way of life. You ever watch TV and look at actors and actresses and athletes and celebrities and think, man, they've got it good? You know how they feel deep down inside? Empty. You are far richer than they are because you understand what life is about. Life is about one thing, that Jesus Christ came to save us, to forgive us, and to redeem us. That's what life is about. Peter understood what redemption was all about. He understood redemption firsthand. Go back to John 21, verse 18. We've got a little bit more ground to cover. John 21, verse 18. Very truly I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. Jesus said this to indicate the kind of death by which Peter would glorify God. Then he said to him, follow me. Same lake, same miracle, same fire, same challenge, same call. Follow me. The opportunity for redemption is right there in front of Peter. Jesus told Peter, you're strong again, you're redeemed again, you're the rock again. You're going to have to be strong for what you're going to go through in your life. Because Jesus said to him, you're going to stretch out your hands, they're going to lead you where you don't want to go. Indicating the kind of death Peter would die. The death by which Peter would glorify God. And we know what happened to Peter. He was crucified, just as Jesus was. In fact, there's a Christian from the first century, his name is Clement. And Clement wrote that Peter and his wife were crucified on the same day. Peter's wife was crucified first. She told Peter, remember the Lord. After she was crucified, Peter was crucified. And it is said that Peter did not want to be crucified in the same way as Jesus. He didn't feel worthy, so he was crucified upside down. Peter is supposedly buried at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. About 50 years ago, they did a study on the corpse that's in that casket. They determined that it was in that casket is a man who lived about 2,000 years ago, who lived to be about 60 years old. So in that tomb in St. Peter's Basilica might actually be Peter's body. Peter was the one who led the apostles. He's the one who preached on Pentecost. He's the one that preached to the Gentiles for the very first time. He's the one that wrote 1st and 2nd Peter. Jesus told him, Peter, you're going to be crucified. You're going to die a death that will glorify me. Follow me. Wonderful. Happy ending. Let's stop there. Oops. Problem. Verse 20. Verse 20. Peter turned and saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was following them. Who is the disciple whom Jesus loved? John. This was the one who had leaned back against Jesus at the supper and had said, Lord, who is going to betray you? When Peter saw him, he asked, Lord, what about him? Verse 22, Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? You must follow me. So Peter says, all right, Jesus, I'm going to be crucified for you. I'm okay with that. He's already told Jesus, I'll die for you if I have to. He's not afraid to die. But he says, you told me what's going to happen to me. What about John? What happens to him? Now, I don't know a lot of Greek words, but I think the Greek word for this is nunya. You know what I'm talking about? None your business, Peter. You worry about Peter and let John worry about John. If I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? Is John the Apostle still alive today? No. Has Jesus returned yet? Certainly not. So he did not remain alive until Jesus returned. Look at verse 23. Look at verse 23. Because of this, the rumor spread among the believers that this disciple would not die. But Jesus did not say that he would not die. He only said, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? Did you catch the key word there? Keywords? The rumor spread. See, this is the first instance of church gossip. The rumor spread. You don't think it happens still? Of course it does. I'll tell you a story real quick about when, this was a long time ago, 2002, I believe. And I was up here preaching and I was sweating a lot. And somebody came up to me after church and they said, Mark, are you going to the hospital? And I'm like, no, why? He said, because you have kidney stones. And I went, wow, I didn't know I had kidney stones. I did not know this. Church gossip was going around so much that day. Some people thought I had kidney stones. I didn't have them then. I don't have them now. I don't think. But there was another gentleman in our church named Mark. He had kidney stones. Not me. Poor guy. He had them. Not me. They said, why are you sweating so much? It's like, because I have a lot of hot air coming out. But that's how rumors spread. So a rumor spread that said, John's not going to die before Jesus comes. Well, he did die. He was the last to die. James, the 7 men in this boat, they all died for Jesus. They all died for the gospel. They died so that you could come to church today. You ever think about that? They died so that you could come to church today. James was the first one to die. He was beheaded. Peter was crucified upside down. Andrew was crucified on an egg-shaped cross. We believe Nathaniel was crucified as well. Philip was stoned to death. Do you remember Thomas? He wanted to see the spear mark in Jesus' side. He was speared to death. John was the last one to die. All 7 of these men died so that we could be here today. Verse 24 and 25. This is the disciple who testifies to these things and who wrote them down. We know that his testimony is true. Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. I couldn't leave out any one of those verses. They're all so great. The Gospel of John is tremendous. But John says, this is my testimony, and it's true. I was there. I lived it. I was there. I was close to Jesus. And everything that I've written down is true. Then he says, if we had written down everything that Jesus had done, the world could not contain the books. The world couldn't hold the books. It would contain all of the wonderful things that Jesus did and said when he was on earth. can't contain all the things that Jesus has done. Can't capture them with words. We're actually going to talk about the Bible next week. Why is it important to us? Why should we read it? Why do we need it? But I thought it was important for us to look at this story in John chapter 21. You know, John says the world can't hold the books about Jesus. And 2,000 years later, what are we doing? We're still preaching about Jesus. We're still writing about Jesus. We're still talking about Jesus. And I don't know about you, but I'm not even close to fully understanding everything that's written in this book about him. The story of Peter and Jesus in John 21 is so powerful. And there is power in the Word of God. And I just want you to think of it in a different way